Could Jacoby Brissett be on his way to the Big Apple after Aaron Rodgers' season-ending Achilles injury? Going to be breaking that down on today's show, as well as some early season free agency targets for your Washington Commanders. But before we get into today's action, do me a favor, click that subscribe button because we're going to be doing a watch party for this week's matchup versus the Denver Broncos. Game starts at, I believe, 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern time. We're going to get going at around 4 p.m. Eastern with the stream, so make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can join us with our watch party this week. Now, let's talk about the Aaron Rodgers injury yesterday. Now, yes, this is a Commanders show, but this injury definitely affects the potential trade rumors going around here for the Washington Commanders. Of course, last night on Monday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers went down with a season-ending Achilles rupture, and Zach Wilson had to take over. Now, the big question for the New York Jets is, do they want to go with Zach Wilson or do they want to trade for a veteran quarterback or sign one in NFL free agency? Let's start making the case for Zach Wilson here. In 2022, he played in 9 games, 54.5 completion percentage. Holy terrible. Then he gets 6 touchdowns to 7 interceptions and a PFF grade of 46.6, which was one of the worst in the National Football League. They apparently still believe in him, which is why they kept him to kind of learn from Rodgers. But now, 4 plays into the season, Zach Wilson is back out there. So the big question for the New York Jets, like I said, is going to be, do they think they can make a playoff run with Zach Wilson as their quarterback, or do they want to not waste a season and that great defense that they have, some really great weapons? I mean, Garrett Wilson is just an absolutely phenomenal talent. I mean, you could definitely be making the case right now that Zach Wilson would be wasting a season for Robert Saleh and the New York Jets. So I think that if I were Joe Douglas, the GM of the Jets, I'd be looking to trade for a solid veteran quarterback to kind of lead this team throughout this season and kind of give Zach Wilson that gap here that you were kind of planning on giving him anyway. And I think Jacoby Brissett, the Washington Commanders' backup quarterback right now, is a name that they're going to highly, highly consider. Here are some of the reasons. He was the 10th most valuable quarterback per dropback in 2022 per the points above replacement model. Now, that's essentially advanced sabermetrics analytics that tell you the value of a player. And he was top 10 in the National Football League per dropback with the Cleveland Browns. And this is a very similar scheme that the Cleveland Browns ran to the New York Jets, right? The New York Jets run that West Coast system with Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. Kevin Stefanski with the Browns runs a very, very similar offense, so he would be a great fit right away, could probably run the offense right after he got traded, or the week after he got traded. And also his PFF grade last year, 82.6, which was a career high, and almost 40 points higher than Zach Wilson's was last year. So I think this would be a nice little pickup for the Jets. It would allow Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook in that run game to really be the identity of that offense. And then, of course, the core of that team is that defense with Quinnen Williams, Jermaine Johnson, Sauce Gardner, of course. I mean, that defense just showed you what they're capable of last night. And now the big question is, what's going to be the asking price for the Commanders if they're willing to deal Jacoby Brissett? Now, the Jets' second-round draft pick is on its way to the Green Bay Packers. That was included in that Aaron Rodgers deal. So you can't really get a second-round pick. I highly doubt the Jets would trade a first-round pick for Jacoby Brissett. So it seems like the best possible compensation that's realistic here is a third-round pick from the New York Jets in exchange for Jacoby Brissett. Now, I'm going to tell you whether or not I would do this trade here in just a second, but before I do that, let me know what you guys would do. If you were the GM of the Washington Commanders right now and this trade offer hits your desk, what are you doing? Are you accepting or are you declining? Type A if you're accepting, or type D if you're going to decline. This is the pinned comment on today's show. So whenever YouTube throws you an ad break here, it's just going to be in a couple of seconds. Take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Personally, I would at least think about it. I'm not saying for sure that I would or wouldn't, but I'm definitely leaning towards potentially doing it. And there's some good reasons why the Commanders should consider trading Brissett to the Jets for a third-round pick. Here are some of the positives in trading him here. You get a valuable draft pick. A third-round draft pick is not like a throwaway pick, right? That's somebody that could absolutely become an immediate starter in this league, particularly if you do your homework with your scouting and your pre-draft process. Third-round picks are extremely valuable in NFL front offices, and if the Jets offer you one, you're pretty much getting one for your backup quarterback. And then also, speaking of the quarterback situation, it would lock in Sam Howell as the starting quarterback for the 2023 season. You brought Jacoby Brissett in on a 1-year, $10 million contract to kind of duke it out with Sam Howell during the preseason and training camp, and then also to be the backup this year. But, if you send Brissett elsewhere, that really locks in Sam Howell as the starter. He's not looking over his shoulder throughout this season. He really gets the full year to really show us what he can do, and he can play a little bit more freely. And then also it would save $4 million in 2023 cap space here. So if the Commanders want to go out and get an interior offensive lineman, if they want to go sign another running back, if they want to add another linebacker here during the 2023 season, they have $4 million in extra cap space to get that done. Now, there are negatives here, so there is a reason why you might not want to get rid of Jacoby Brissett at this point in time. Number one, what if Sam Howell gets hurt, right? Jacoby Brissett is one of the best backups in the National Football League. And then also, what if Sam Howell just straight up stinks? What if he struggles here throughout this season and you have to go to Jacoby Brissett to try to save your season? You're probably going to want Brissett on the roster if Howell starts to stink this season. By the way, that's not a prediction. I thought Sam Howell played pretty darn well in Week 1 versus the Cardinals. Very excited to see what he's going to do against the Broncos and the rest of this 2023 schedule. But if it happens, it is certainly nice to have that security blanket in Jacoby Brissett, who in my opinion is one of the best backups in the National Football League. And then another negative is that although you get $4 million in additional cap space if you trade Brissett, you do take on $4.5 million in dead cap. Those numbers are according to Over the Cap, by the way, just in case you are wondering. Now, coming up here on the Commanders Report, some early season free agency targets. I got 4 names to go over with you guys here in just a second in case the Commanders want to improve their roster here as the season goes on. But before we get into that, check out our friends at BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code CHAT125 for a 125% deposit bonus on deposits of $100 to $600. Now, what does that mean? Let's say you put in $100, say, all right? Then that means you get a 125% deposit bonus, $125 extra dollars, $225 total to use on your bets. And why not use that on this weekend's game against the against the Broncos? Go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code CHAT125 to get that deposit bonus in your favor today. Now let's talk about free agency, where, of course, there's not many really good players available in NFL free agency at this point in the season. Most of the good players and starting capable players, they're on NFL rosters, right? So there's not a whole lot of people to choose from at this point in time, but the Commanders do have just under $7 million in 2023 cap space at this point. That's a little bit of room there to potentially go out and get another player if you want to here in free agency. Here are some of the best options at the positions of need for the Washington Commanders on their roster right now. Let's start with the interior of the offensive line and Ben Jones, who I have been advocating for the Commanders to sign for literally months at this point. He is a starting capable center/guard who started last year for the Tennessee Titans and was a good starter. I'm very surprised that he is still available on the open market. And, you take a look at the Week 1 Pro Football Focus grades along this offensive line. I thought, Charles Leno Jr., I was surprised by how high his grade was, 78.2, the highest on this team. Sam Cosmi, when I went over the film this week, he looked really impressive. I thought the 71.1 was actually probably a little bit low, in my opinion. And Andrew Wiley was fine at 69.9. But you take a look at the left guard and center positions, 55.6 PFF grade for Sadiq Charles. Can't say I'm surprised about that, man. I've been telling you for weeks that this guy is not a starting capable offensive lineman in this league. And then Nick Gates struggled a little bit as well at the center position with a 60.6 PFF grade. If you bring in Ben Jones right now, you put in a good starter that in most games last year had a grade of over 70, according to Pro Football Focus for the Tennessee Titans last year. This offensive line instantly becomes better. And then another player that you could consider adding that would instantly make this team better, you could plug him in right there at left guard to replace Sadiq Charles, is Dalton Risner. He's been waiting for a while. There's rumors that he might end up going to the Minnesota Vikings here. And maybe by the time you're watching this, he's already signed somewhere. But I'm looking at a guy like Dalton Risner, somebody that's been a good pass protector in this league for a very, very long time, could instantly make this offensive line better from the day he walks into the building. If I'm Ron Rivera and I'm trying to improve this roster, I am looking to add an interior offensive lineman above all other positions. Now, if you could only sign one of these two gentlemen in NFL free agency, let me know which one it would be. Would you rather go after Ben Jones, type BJ if you think him, or if you think it's going to be Dalton Risner here, type DR down there in the comment section. All right, if you don't want to get an interior offensive lineman, another option is inside linebacker. And right now, the linebacking group in free agency is incredibly sparse. I think the best available linebacker is Anthony Barr. He started 10 games last year with the Dallas Cowboys, but we'll get to him in a second. Let's talk about the need on this roster at inside linebacker, okay? Because Cody Barton, holy crap, man. When I went through the film this week against the Arizona Cardinals, Barton was just awful. He might have been the worst inside linebacker in the National Football League, consistently getting blown off his spot by blockers, constantly in the wrong run fit, not good in coverage. This guy was absolutely awful in week one, and that shows there with the week one PFF grade. 37.3 PFF grade. That's 69th. Nice in the National Football League. Not good whatsoever. And honestly, I'm surprised it's not 73rd. It was that bad. It was so bad. He wasn't even that good with the Seattle Seahawks last year, in my opinion. I didn't love the signing when they signed him in free agency. Personally, only had 4 tackles in this one. He needs to pick it up big time if he wants to keep this job, because Khaleke Hudson, somebody that played a little bit for the Commanders last year towards the end of the season, played pretty darn well, was really good in the preseason. I almost think that Khaleke would be a better option to start than Cody Barton at this point, because Cody just straight up sucked in week one. And it's not like he's going up against the San Francisco 49ers or the Philadelphia Eagles with just like incredible run schemes and stuff like that. This is the Arizona freaking Cardinals we're talking about here, and he was getting blasted down in and down out. That's not good enough. I think Khaleke Hudson, who didn't play a single snap in week one at inside linebacker, should maybe get a shot. And then if you don't want to go with Khaleke Hudson, say you don't trust him, you need to get somebody else in the building. Anthony Barr, in my opinion, is the best available inside linebacker. Started 10 games for the Cowboys in 2022. Like I said before, very athletic player, good blitzer, not necessarily the best in coverage, not necessarily the best run defender either, maybe not the best tackler in the world either, but he is definitely the best available on the open market right now. And if you want to go out in free agency and get somebody to fill this position and replace Cody Barton, Anthony Barr is probably going to be the answer for me. Now, out of these 3 linebackers here, which player is the best? Let me know down there in the comments. Do you think it's Cody Barton? And I'm overreacting here, type CB. Do you think it's Khaleke Hudson, type KH? Or if you'd like to go out in free agency and sign Anthony Barr to a contract here and add him to this roster, type AB down there in the comments. And the final free agency target to discuss today, the running back position, Kareem Hunt. Of course, Hunt was connected to the Washington Commanders throughout this offseason because of his ties to offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. Kareem Hunt led the league in rushing with the Kansas City Chiefs when Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator there in KC, so that connection is absolutely there. And in week one, the Commanders' run game was just not very good, man. Let's just call it what it is. Just 3.3 yards per carry, just under 100 yards total rushing, and it just wasn't good enough, plain and simply. They tried to get the run game going all day long. It wasn't really working. Brian Robinson, I think he's a really tough, I think he's a really smart player. I like Brian Robinson, all right, but he doesn't have that dynamic element to his game. Antonio Gibson had a fumble, right? He's not necessarily the best in terms of choosing the right lane to run through, in my opinion. He's not the most intelligent runner in the world. I think he's got some dynamic talent, but he's going to have some good games, but he's definitely not that consistent presence. You can certainly see Kareem Hunt potentially coming in here and providing a little bit of a spark to Eric Bieniemy's run game. Now, I do want to note, I'm not blaming the lack of production in the run game on the running backs necessarily. The offensive line was not blocking particularly well, but I think it's also safe to say that there's something missing in this running back room right now. I don't think Brian Robinson Jr. is a dynamic star-level talent. I think Antonio Gibson's time to prove that about himself has certainly come and gone as well. And, Kareem Hunt hasn't necessarily been the best player over the last couple of seasons with the Cleveland Browns. I do think he's got a little bit more juice and a little bit more dynamicism that he could come in here and potentially give this team a spark heading into the rest of the year if Eric Bieniemy thinks that they need it. Now, shout your guy out down in the comments section. Name a free agent player that you want the Commanders to sign and add to this roster this season. Is there somebody you have in mind? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. That'll be it for me today, Commanders fans. Really do appreciate all of your support for the channel. Make sure you click that subscribe button again because we're going to be having more Commanders content for you throughout the week leading up to our watch party on Sunday. Again, we're going to be starting that at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you always know when we go live here on our channel. That'll be it for me today, guys. I will see you guys later. And as always, hail to the Commanders.